Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. Job and the Voice from the Whirlwind. There once lived a man named Job in the mysterious land of Uz, a man remembered not for great armies or mighty kingdoms, but for his integrity. His fields flourished, his family was large, his herds stretched across the hills, and his heart sought to walk faithfully before God. Yet in the span of days, everything he cherished disappeared. Raiders stole his livestock, fire consumed his flocks, a mighty wind collapsed the house where his children had gathered, and every one of them was lost. As if grief itself were not enough, painful sores covered Job from head to foot until he sat alone upon a heap of ashes outside the city, scraping his wounds with a broken piece of pottery. Friends came to comfort him, but as the days passed, their compassion became accusation. Surely, they reasoned, such suffering must be punishment for hidden sin. Again and again, Job searched his heart and found no secret crime deserving such anguish. He cried out with honest questions, pleading to understand why the righteous sometimes suffer while the wicked appear to prosper. His words rose into the silence, and for what must have felt like an eternity, heaven gave no reply. Then, at last, the wind began to stir. Clouds gathered overhead, and from within a mighty whirlwind the voice of the Lord answered. Yet the answer was unlike anything Job expected. God did not explain the reason for Job's suffering. Instead, he asked question after question, revealing a universe far greater than any human mind could grasp. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Have you commanded the morning since your days began? Could you bind the stars of the Pleiades or loosen the belt of Orion? The question stretched from the depths of the sea to the farthest reaches of the heavens. From the birth of mountain goats upon lonely cliffs to the paths of lightning across the sky, God spoke of creatures beyond human control, including the mighty, behemoth, and the fearsome Leviathan, reminding Job that creation overflowed with the mysteries no single person could ever comprehend. Standing before such immeasurable wonder, Job's perspective changed. He realized that his life, though precious, was only one thread woven into an unimaginably vast tapestry. His suffering had been real, his questions had been sincere, but the universe was larger than his understanding, and the one who held its countless mysteries also held him. Job lowered his head, not because every question had been answered, but because he finally recognized that not every truth could fit within the limits of human sight. In time, healing came. His fortunes were restored, his family grew again, and peace slowly returned to his life. Yet the greatest restoration was not found in the return of wealth or comfort. It came in the quiet humility of knowing that while humanity cannot see the entire design of creation, it is never forgotten by the one who does. Story 2, Indra's Net, where everything is connected. Beyond the reach of mountains, beyond the wandering clouds, and beyond even the stars themselves, Buddhist tradition imagines a vision so vast that no eye could ever take it all in at once. It is called Indra's Net, a great colossal web stretching endlessly through the universe in every direction. At each point where its golden threads meet, hangs a radiant jewel, flawless and brilliant beyond measure. Yet each jewel possesses an extraordinary quality. If you look deeply into a single gem, you do not see only its beauty. Reflected within its polished surface are all the other jewels in the infinite net. And within each of those reflections appears every other jewel again, continuing without end in an endless tapestry of light. No jewel shines alone. Every movement, every glimmer, every change is instantly reflected throughout the whole. The ancient teachers used this magnificent image to reveal one of Buddhism's deepest truths. Nothing exists independently. Every life is woven into countless others through relationships, choices, kindnesses, and consequences too numerous to measure. The food upon our table depends upon rain, fertile soil, seeds, insects, sunlight, and the labor of strangers we may never meet. A single tree offers shelter to birds, enriches the earth beneath its roots, cools the air, and releases the breath that countless creatures depend on. Even a simple smile offered to someone carrying unseen burdens may ripple through families, communities, and generations in ways that can never be fully traced. Likewise, a careless word, a selfish act, or a moment of cruelty does not end where it began. Its reflections continue outward, touching lives we may never know. The Buddhist sages taught that understanding this truth gives birth to compassion. If every being is connected like jewels upon the same net, then another person's suffering is never entirely separate from our own. Another's joy adds light to the whole. To care for the world is, in the very real sense, to care for ourselves. The image also humbles the human heart. We are neither the center of creation nor isolated from it. We are one radiant jewel among infinitely many, each precious not because it stands alone, but because it participates in something immeasurably greater. Every decision becomes significant. Every act of generosity brightens the entire web. Every moment of forgiveness softens countless unseen reflections. Though no single jewel can illuminate the whole net by itself, each contributes its own irreplaceable light to the endless design. Looking into Indra's net, the sages discover that the universe is not a collection of separate lives struggling beside one another. It is a single living tapestry where every thread strengthens another, and every jewel quietly carries the image of the entire cosmos within itself. In recognizing this, they found both humility and profound belonging. To understand who we are, we need only look carefully into one another, for there the whole universe is already reflected. Story 3. Zhuangzi's Butterfly Dream. One quiet evening in ancient China, the philosopher Zhuangzi fell into a deep and peaceful sleep. As dreams often do, it carried him far beyond the ordinary world. In this dream, he was no longer a scholar pondering the mysteries of life. He had become a butterfly, with delicate wings catching the morning breeze. He drifted effortlessly among wildflowers, danced through shafts of golden sunlight, and floated above quiet streams without a single care or question. The world was wonderfully simple. He knew nothing of books, responsibilities, or philosophy. There was only the sweetness of blooming blossoms, the gentle warmth of the sun, and the freedom of moving wherever the wind wished to carry him. Every flower offered a new place to land. Every breeze became an invitation rather than an obstacle. There was no struggle to become someone greater because the butterfly lacked nothing. It simply lived. Then, as suddenly as the dream had begun, Zhuangzi awoke. He found himself once again lying upon his mat, surrounded by the familiar world of human life. Yet instead of dismissing the dream as an illusion, he paused in quiet wonder. A single question entered his mind, one that would echo through centuries of Daoist thought. Was I, Zhuangzi, dreaming that I was a butterfly? Or am I now a butterfly dreaming that I am Zhuangzi? The question was never meant to confuse for the sake of confusion. It invited people to loosen their grip upon certainty itself. Human beings often divide the world into neat categories, real and unreal, success and failure, life and death, self and other. Yet nature rarely draws such rigid lines. Day quietly becomes night without anyone seeing the exact moment of change. Rivers flow endlessly while never holding the same water twice. Clouds gather, dissolve, and gather again without ever truly disappearing. The Daoist sages call this living harmony, the Tao, the mysterious way that gives rise to all things while remaining beyond complete explanation. Rather than trying to control every mystery, they encourage people to live with openness, humility, and trust. Zhuangzi's dream became one of the most beloved stories in Chinese philosophy because it gently reminds us that our understanding is always smaller than reality itself. The world is deeper than our labels, richer than our definitions, more fluid than our certainty allows. Instead of demanding complete answers, the Tao invites us to participate in the unfolding of life with curiosity and peace. Like the butterfly drifting effortlessly upon the wind, wisdom is sometimes found not in grasping tighter, but in learning to let ourselves be carried by something greater than our own understanding. In that quiet surrender, Zhuangzi discovered a freedom that could never be captured by certainty alone. Story 4: The Sky Stories That Remember Us. Long before telescopes measured the heavens or maps charted the stars, countless indigenous nations across North America looked upward and saw more than distant lights, scattered across the night. The sky was alive with memory. Every constellation carried a teaching. Every season of stars marked a change upon the earth, and every generation gathered beneath the same heavens to hear the stories once again. Among the Lakota people, the Zhuangzi, Ska, Wakan, the sacred hoop, reminded them that all life moves in a great circle where every being has its place and every action touches the whole. The stars reflected this living circle above, just as families, animals, rivers, and the land formed it below. Far to the northeast, the Anishinaabe watched the changing constellations as guides through the seasons, recognizing that the heavens and the earth spoke together. Across the southwest, the Diné, known to many as the Navajo, understood the stars as part of Haujo, sacred way of living in beauty, balance, and right relationship with all creation. Different nations told different stories, yet they shared a remarkable understanding. Human beings were never the center of the universe. We belonged to it. Children learn this not by reading books, but by lying beside grandparents beneath a sky so brilliant, filled with stars, that the darkness itself seemed woven from light. As fingers pointed toward the Milky Way, stories unfolded about ancestors, animals, heroes, and the great mysteries that stretch beyond human sight. The heavens became both a library and a sanctuary, teaching humility without diminishing human worth. Looking upward did not make people feel insignificant. It reminded them that every person carried responsibilities within a creation far greater than themselves. The rivers deserved respect because they sustained life. The buffalo, salmon, elk, and eagles were relatives rather than resources. Mountains were places of prayer. Even the stars were not distant objects but faithful companions who had watched countless generations come and go. To forget this relationship was to lose one's way. To remember it was to walk in harmony with the world. Every clear night offered another invitation to lift one's eyes beyond immediate worries and rediscover a place within the larger story of creation. The stars had witnessed every triumph and every sorrow long before any living person was born. They would continue shining long after each generation had returned to the earth. Yet for a brief and beautiful moment, every human life had the privilege of standing beneath that same sky, adding one more story to the countless voices already carried among the constellations. The heavens did not ask humanity to become larger. They invited people to become humbler, more grateful, and more deeply aware that to be small within such a magnificent universe is not weakness. It is one of life's greatest gifts. Daily thread for July 31st. The humble. Around every campfire, sooner or later, someone looks up. The stories grow quiet. The flames settle into glowing embers, and above the trees the stars begin to appear, one by one. It is in that moment, shared by countless generations across every continent, that something remarkable happens. We remember that the world is far larger than ourselves. Job stood beneath a whirlwind and discovered that the one who set the stars in their places could hold mysteries beyond human understanding without ever losing sight of a single life. Indra's net revealed the universe where every living being reflects every other, reminding us that no kindness or cruelty ever belongs to us alone. Zhuangzi's butterfly invited us to loosen our grip on certainty, teaching that wisdom often begins the moment we admit reality is deeper than we imagined. And the sky stories of the indigenous peoples of North America gently lift our eyes toward the heavens, where the stars have patiently watched every generation arrive, live, love, grieve, and return to the earth. Together, these stories became the perfect ending to our journey. Over the past month, we have walked beside gods and heroes, crossed oceans and mountains, entered sacred forests, climbed into the heavens, descended into the underworld, witnessed the births of worlds, watched civilizations fall, and stood beside fires that have burned in human memory for thousands of years. We have learned that every culture asks the same great questions in beautifully different ways. Where did we come from? Why do we suffer? What gives life meaning? What happens when this chapter ends? No single tradition answered every question completely, yet each carried a piece of the greater conversation. Like jewels upon Indra's net, every story reflected another, reminding us that wisdom grows brighter when shared. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson folklore has ever offered. We are wonderfully small, yet never insignificant. We are brief, yet capable of leaving kindness that echoes long after we are gone. We cannot hold the whole universe in our minds, but we can stand beneath it with gratitude. The stars do not ask us to know everything. They simply invite us to wonder. And perhaps wonder is where true wisdom has always begun. So tonight, before this month's fire finally grows quiet, step outside if you can. Look toward the sky that has watched every storyteller before you. Somewhere beneath those same stars, an elder once shared the very myths we have explored together. Somewhere beneath them, a child heard those stories for the first time and carried them into the next generation. Now they have reached you. The fire may cool, another month may begin, and new stories will soon be told, but the thread connecting every generation remains unbroken. We are all, in our own way, another voice around the same ancient fire.